2023 has been a wild year for me in gaming. Thanks to you all, this channel grew from 10 subscribers to over 4,000, so first and foremost, thank you all so much for your views and support. In other news, on stream things have been getting real weird. I was featured in a PC Gamer magazine article and got scolded by my mom for my use of language. Other than that, 2023 saw some great game releases and I barely played any of them. I'm still busy being a year behind on most busy release schedules, but what I did play this year was awesome, so let's not beat around the bush and get right into the honorable mentions in no particular order. I really enjoyed my time with On Guard. I'm a big fan of the Soulsy formula and I love when a developer finds a new way to make it their own. In a sea of drab imitators, On Guard was colorful, innovative, and had a great overall vibe. The only reason it isn't higher on my list is because it was a little on the short side and one fight felt really overtuned, but that may have been because I was doing my first playthrough on the highest difficulty. I've been looking for something to scratch the Hotline Miami itch, and Ocho delivers and then some. This game is worth it for the soundtrack alone, but the actual game is just as good. The roguelike elements are integrated into the story in a very disjointed way that works really well. The only issue I have with Ocho is the same one I have with Hotline Miami, where enemies can kill you from way off screen. This game is already very hard, and adding an unfair element like that is just a tad overkill. I'm way late to the party on Pathfinder Kingmaker, but I loved what I played of it. As a D&D purist, this was my first introduction to the world of Pathfinder, and Kingmaker did a great job of easing me into it. Unfortunately, I ended up hitting a lose condition and never finishing the game. Losing a 30+ hour save feels real bad, but the rise and fall of my kingdom was a fun story to experience. Also, Knock Knock is my favorite, and any game that lets me build a rancid goblin village will easily land high on my lists. Control was a blast to experience for a while, but it kind of falls flat towards the end. Overall, it's solid, but it feels like there's just so many missed opportunities here. Our protagonist is always reactive and just isn't very interesting, leading to a main story that doesn't do its setting justice. It's so weird and out there and has so much personality, but it never really reaches those highs you know it's capable of, especially after reaching Ashtray Maze, which is easily one of the best sections in shooter history. Also, if you've watched any of my guides, it should be obvious where I get the inspiration for my title cards from. Anyway, now that we're done addressing the first place losers, let's talk about my top games of 2023. I am a massive fan of the first Darkest Dungeon, and I love what the sequel accomplished. Do I think it was a total success in what it set out to do? Sadly, no. But I respect Red Hook so much for trying to evolve their game and setting into something almost totally different for their sequel. On a technical level, everything here is great. The soundtrack and sound design are amazing, and the new 3D art style is a massive leap forward on a style that already looked great in the first game. While I'm not a huge fan of the carriage as a mechanic, the way it's presented and rolls through the various oppressive regions looks amazing. When it comes to selling a bleak and hopeless atmosphere, Red Hook might be my favorite developer. In terms of gameplay, the new token system feels very intuitive and easy to follow. The way it gets integrated into later boss fights can be very clever too. Pretty much every enemy feels interesting and well designed. There's just something about this new formula that didn't quite click for me, and that's okay. I'd rather see a developer take bold risks like this than make safe, incremental improvements on a formula they know already works. I really don't have too much to say about Deep Rock Galactic other than if you're looking for one of the best co-op multiplayer experiences possible, you should buy this game immediately. The seasonal updates, gear progression, character customization, loadout customization, boss fights, it's all fantastic. Everything in this game is designed around one question: is it fun? Do you think grinding on an oil pipeline while spraying flames into a horde of giant bugs sounds fun? You bet your beard it is. And the community. I've never found an online gaming community this positive. Like seriously, this is the inverse of a Call of Duty lobby. People are helpful and generally enthusiastic towards new players. I mean, sure, you're still gonna get the odd asshole here and there, but they're the exception rather than the rule. So if objective-based gameplay is something that you're into, you owe it to yourself to check out Deep Rock Galactic. And remember, if you don't rock and stone, you ain't coming home.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me.
I never really got the appeal of the Warhammer 40k setting. I played some of the licensed 40k RTS games and walked past the miasma-drenched Games Workshop, but that wasn't really doing it for me. And then I played Mechanicus. As a massive XCOM fan, this game clicked with me right away, and it feels like a perfect fit for a tabletop strategy game. I have no idea how Bulwark Studios, a small French studio of about 20 people, managed to pull this off. There is so much care and polish on display here, and that's on top of this game hitting way above its weight class. There is so much customization progression and interesting ways to approach combat in this game. The missions are varied and interesting, and balancing your desire to explore versus the doom meter is a very fun challenge. While I do miss the partial and full cover system from XCOM, I can't say this game is any worse off for not having it. Making everything based around cognition points and line of sight works incredibly well. And finally, the sound design and music in this game goes absolutely insane. Like, this is what actually got me on the 40k wiki. I wanted to learn more about these strange tech priests and their religion, and from there I fell into the 40k lore pit. And that was all because of how well this game presented its world. Bravo, Bulwark, bravo. Speaking of games with insane soundtracks, I'll be honest, I only played Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance because of the memes, but oh my god, this game is amazing. Why don't we make games like this anymore? The soundtrack to every boss fight is as insane as the gameplay, and believe me, the moment-to-moment gameplay feels so good. This is another game in the class of utterly stupid but hard committed to its premise without a hint of irony. You suplex a Gundam and it's just another day in this world. It's so damn refreshing. This game understands spectacle and fun and how to balance them, and I really can't oversell just how overtop this all is in the best possible way. This may be the oldest entry in the list, but it does not feel like it. It has aged incredibly well, and if you want some more or less mindless fun, give this one a go. Okay, this may be a bit of a cop-out, but 2 games tied for my top spot this year. And the first one I want to talk about gets a little personal. In case my love of CRPGs and D&D didn't make it clear, I'm a massive fantasy nerd. I picked up Baldur's Gate 1 from Costco in the late 1900s with the money I'd saved from my paper route. Now, this wasn't my introduction to fantasy, but Baldur's Gate 1 was my introduction to what good fantasy could do. Not only did this get me into D&D, but modding, hex editing, and then programming, something I would later go on to make a career out of. This is all to say that Baldur's Gate 1 holds a very special place in my heart. So here we are, 20 years later. I've avoided all the early access buzz around Baldur's Gate 3 and steered clear of pretty much all media surrounding it. I had no idea what to expect going in, and I can happily say that it lived up to my incredibly high expectations. I mean, it's on this list, what did you expect? Not only is this a worthy successor to the amazing legacy of the previous games, but it's the closest anyone has ever been able to capture the insanity of the tabletop Dungeons & Dragons experience. You can go from hypergore to a shopping spree to Asterion being a bisexual disaster. Anyone who's dabbled in Dungeons & Dragons for a while can tell you that this tonal insanity is the beating heart of the game, and Baldur's Gate 3 captures that perfectly. The story does an amazing job of selling how terrifying Illithids are, as well as building up interesting villains and personal stakes. But more importantly than that, the companions and their motivations and personal quests are probably the best I've ever seen in any CRPG. I don't know if I've ever felt more invested in a character's personal struggle than in this game. And I'm not talking about just one companion, I'm talking about every single one. Except you, Lizelle, sorry. I even got a little misty-eyed a few times, and without giving away any spoilers, when a certain someone bursts out of a mimic, I actually jumped off the couch and screamed, much to my wife's confusion. Also, this game is one of the gayest things I've ever seen, and I've attended Toronto Pride. And again, this is very accurate to most tabletop D&D games I've played. While most games would elicit a fucking rant from their communities at the slightest hint of a rainbow, fantasy has always been a bastion of escapism for queer people, and Baldur's Gate 3 embraces that and then some. I think Amelia Tyler, the narrator, said it best in this outtake.
That could be the tagline for the entire game. Frantic by energy. We live in horny jail. You can't send us there.
Lyrian Studios had a near impossible legacy to live up to with Baldur's Gate 3, and somehow they pulled it off. All the accolades and praise are more than well deserved, and if you've had any interest in fantasy or Dungeons & Dragons, I would highly encourage you to give this game a shot. Anyways, you may have spotted a pattern and noticed by now that I value style very highly in a video game. There's nothing quite like a game with a singular vision and vibe that says exactly what it wants to say the way it wants to say it. Games like this ooze their own style in a way that sets them apart in a sea of uninspired clones of successful properties that came before. Even when a game is emulating its predecessor, if it can do it in a way that's all its own, that can oftentimes be enough to elevate it to something new and interesting. That's why, for me, the only real choice for my other top game of 2023 is Diablo 4. Oh my god, could you imagine? Every game is now worse because HIFI Rush exists. I'm not a huge fan of beat 'em ups, but everything about this game exudes style and passion. There's so much eye and ear candy packed into every inch of this game that honestly, I'm in awe. The way everything syncs up to the beat seamlessly looks and feels too good to be true. Beat 'em ups usually have this kind of rhythm that you fall into, but this game really just takes that to its logical conclusion. You'd think that having everything happen on the beat would make things feel laggy or sluggish, but it never does. Everything just clicks and it works exactly as as you'd expect, and it is amazing. The characters and their dynamics are all fantastic. We have Moron, Cat, Tomboy GF you'll never be able to date, Man Wife, and more. There's a whole Saturday morning cartoon vibe, and their found family dynamic is just so charming that I couldn't help but smile every time I got to interact with them. And I know that probably sounds like something you've seen before, but like I was saying earlier, this game does it in such a way that it feels wonderfully earnest and fresh. And I have to talk about the villains. They're all so good, and their respective levels all have their own unique feel that gives insight into their characters. They often appear on jumbo screens throughout the level to taunt you as well, and the interactions are usually hilarious. Quality assurance is a cacophony of conveyor belts and ruthless efficiency, but my job is ruining a QA department in real life, so Dami Mami Rekka stood no chance against me. R&D is run by a JoJo's villain, so it's as extra as you'd expect. Security is full of laser beams and has one of my favorite boss fights in all of gaming. You'd think walking in a circle while playing Simon Says wouldn't be very compelling gameplay, but damn, you'd be wrong. I mentioned it before, but it's worth repeating. This game is hilarious. I mean it when I say I had to pause several times because I was laughing too hard. And I mean, just look at how good this game actually looks. The animation is just stellar. And I know, I bring up soundtracks a lot, but I mean, come on. The music in this game is as amazing as you'd expect, both the licensed songs and the originals for the game. Like, come on, you're gonna make me do a boss fight perfectly in sync to 9 Inch Nails? Well, damn, okay, I guess. HIFI Rush is pure fun built around a rock-solid foundation of gameplay and a shining example I hope the rest of the gaming industry takes note of. This is how it's done. I'm a huge fan of dark and depressing settings, but bright, pure, good time games like this are few and far between and sorely needed in the gaming landscape. Amazing job, Tango Gameworks. You've made something special and one of the best things I've played this year. Well, that's it for me. I played a lot of great games this year, but these were the standouts. A lot less thinky games and a lot more clicky fun games this time around. What were your favorite games that you played this year? What did you wish worked better? Let me know in the comments. As always, more videos to come. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day and stay safe out there.